Hey, guess what's happening on this week's episode of the Beating Diabetes Lifestyle Podcast with your friend and host, Oscar Camejo.
So you're probably seeing a whole bunch of ads for GLP-1 drugs like Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, Zepbound. These names are interesting. Well, here's what you need to know if you're considering taking any of these drugs. Ozempic and Wegovy, they're the same drug. They're just marketed differently. The same thing with Mounjaro and Zepbound. There are some weekly injections that people take. And I'm also hearing that there's some more pill options coming out later this year. So stay tuned. So you may be wondering, should you be taking meds to lose weight and deal with type 2 diabetes? You probably hate working out. You hate going to the gym. You hate working out at home. You don't have the energy. You don't have the desire. You don't have the willpower, time, or discipline. And you just feel like, man, I'm just not motivated to even eat better. You want to, but you just feel drained. You're exhausted because the last diet program, it just didn't work. Hundreds and thousands of dollars later, still no results. Just a whole bunch of wasted time, wasted money, and energy. So maybe the answer is these new GLP-1 meds that you see celebrities talking about all over the place. It's a good question. Should you be taking these or not? So today we're going to talk all about GLP-1s. Are GLP-1s the new magic pill, the new magic bullet? Who should be taking them in the first place? Should you be taking them? What happens when you stop taking the GLP drugs? Are there some risk of gaining weight later on? What about losing muscle? Well, we don't want to be losing muscle, folks. What about the cost and the financial commitment that it's going to take to be on these drugs? So you need to stick around to hear the rest of today's episode. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be real balanced. So let's go. Be sure to visit the website at www.beatingdiabetieslifestyle.com for access to free resources and other information that will help you along your journey. If you would like to submit a question or a comment about the show or to learn more about the Beating Diabetes Lifestyle, you can always email me at hello@beatingdiabetieslifestyle.com. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to this podcast. Welcome to the Beating Diabetes Lifestyle Podcast with me, your host, Oscar Camejo, helping diabetics make lifestyle changes to reverse type 2 diabetes. Thank you for tuning in and supporting the show. Hit that like button and subscribe. And do me a favor, please share this episode with someone that you love. It's going to help the show to grow so we can continue spreading the awareness about diabetes and healthy lifestyle to achieve long-term good health. So I want to share this with you. This is a part of a lifestyle behavior series. Every week we've been dealing with different habits and different behaviors that we can modify, and we're just growing and learning together. So the last episode, I talked about living a sedentary lifestyle where you're not moving that much. And in the next episode, I'm going to be talking about muscle building, strength training, and so forth. So I figured, why not squeeze in this episode to talk about weight loss and diabetes medication? Here's my story. If this is the first time that you're tuning in, I want you to know a little bit about me. I'm not a doctor, first of all. I'm not a healthcare professional. I'm a guy who's been right where you are. I used to be 268 pounds. I was overweight. I was obese, folks. I was dealing with a whole bunch of issues. I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes in August 2020. I have lived experiences that many people that you see on social media don't have. They tell you, oh yeah, you could do this or you could do that, but they don't have the lived experience. I do. Even some doctors have never experienced what you are experiencing. But I can speak to you plainly because I've been there. Now, I'm not speaking out against doctors. I believe they are trained experts in their field and they can give you some valuable insight. But you know what? When I was prescribed medication for type 2 diabetes, high cholesterol and high blood pressure, and even acid reflux, folks, it was crazy. I was given prescriptions for insulin injection. I think it was like 2 kinds at the time. They put me on metformin, even though metformin is not a GLP-1. Is used to treat type 2 diabetes. I asked my doctor, I was like, Doc, hey, how long am I supposed to be on these meds in the first place? And he basically said, for the rest of your life. And my reaction was like, nah, So, but I did follow my doctor's advice, and eventually he weaned me off of all medications because I lost the weight. I did what I needed to do, and I was able to reverse type 2 diabetes and send it into remission. Okay, so here's a big question. Should you be taking GLP-1 medication to lose weight and treat your type 2 diabetes or prediabetes and not even worry about making lifestyle changes? I mean, don't go to the gym, right? Why do I have to eat healthy? Why can't I just take this pill or take this injection? Well, first, I need you to understand what modern GLP-1 drugs are. These are drugs that are designed to mimic the natural hormones that our bodies make to reduce our appetite and regulate blood sugar. You know what I'm saying? Imagine less appetite for eating. It helps to keep the blood sugar in check too. So many people, they start out using drugs for diabetes and they're finding out that these GLP-1s can be used for even heart conditions. Now, it can be a game changer for a lot of people, especially if they don't want to go the surgery route. So from the research that I found, these drugs, the GLP-1 drugs, they started off as drugs for diabetes, but they're now being used for heart health. You know, there's been some clinical trials where people are seeing, 15 to 20% weight loss and even dealing with some heart conditions and improving their heart health. You know, for a lot of people, it's a game changer. It's an alternative to weight loss surgery, you know, especially if you've been teetering between, man, should I get surgery or not? Or do I take pills or do I do nothing? You know, this is very important. You know, diabetes remission in less than a year, that's a potential to reverse type 2 diabetes that people are experiencing. You're talking about also reducing the risk of strokes and heart attacks. There's some people seeing some results. And the research is showing that people who are using these GLP-1s, they're getting results. So right now, I want to deal with 4 approaches. Number 1, you could do nothing. Don't take meds and don't even make any lifestyle changes. Number 2, you could do your GLP-1 therapy alone. That's it. No lifestyle changes, just take the drugs. Or number 3, you could do the lifestyle changes route and just say, okay, I'm just focusing on my lifestyle changes, changing my habits. Maybe I'll do that. And then there's a 4th approach. Take GLP-1 drugs plus make lifestyle modifications, changing your behaviors for the long haul. You know, that's something to consider. Now, let me break down the 4 approaches. And I think this is something that you're really going to want to pay attention to. Number 1, like I said, you could do nothing. Don't take any meds. Don't make any lifestyle changes. But guess what? You already know what happens with those results. You already know what happens when you take that approach, right? There's a risk of things getting worse. Now, what about just taking the GLP-1s alone? You know, if you keep your same lifestyle behaviors, no changing in how you eat, whatever you're doing right now with exercise, just keeping it just the same. Now, research is showing that people have been seeing some dramatic weight loss. Again, like 15 to 20% weight loss. Now, let's do the math real quick. Let's say you are 250 pounds. A 15% weight loss, that's losing roughly 37.5 pounds, folks. That'll put you down to roughly like 212 pounds. Now, what about a 20% weight loss at 250 pounds? That's talking about you losing 50 pounds and getting down to 200 pounds. What if you're just taking the GLP-1s? You know, there's a risk of muscle loss because of all that weight that you've lost. Have you ever seen those people who you've seen them after a while and they lost a whole bunch of weight, but they look frail and they just look like something's wrong? Well, it makes you wonder if something happened. Like, are you okay? You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, you may be losing body fat, but you don't want to also lose muscle. So that's a risk and a concern. Now, number 3, lifestyle changes alone with no medication. That's eating better, exercising regularly, better sleep habits, reducing your stress, reducing alcohol, stop drinking. You know, that's a route that a lot of people take. No drugs, but a lifestyle change. Now, here's the reality. There will be gradual weight loss. Not as rapid as when you're on the GLP-1 drug therapy. I'm just being honest. That's what some people are seeing and experiencing. It does require a lot of hard work, discipline, habit breaking, consistency, and it's going to require a lot of time, folks. I'm telling you. All right, now let's talk about approach number 4. That's when you mix your GLP-1 therapy along with lifestyle modification changes. Some people believe that it could lead to a better quality of weight loss. Because remember, you don't want to lose all that weight and still look frail and be weak and stuff like that and not be able to move as efficient. But yet you've lost all that weight, right? Some believe it's a healthy way to reach your weight loss goals. So with this fourth approach, which is a mix of the GLP-1 drug therapy along with some lifestyle changes. If you think about it, remember when we were kids or our kids were learning to ride bikes? They were training wheels, right? Many of us, we had training wheels on, or we put training wheels on our kids' bikes. Now, the training wheels, they don't make the bike move. They just help to stabilize, right? So what actually does all the work is us moving the bike, moving our legs. It's our kids moving the legs, right? We still need to do our part when it comes to moving the bike forward. So imagine if your kid, you put him on the bike, and he doesn't move his legs. He's expecting the training wheels to do all the work. It doesn't work like that, right? And what do you tell your kid? Hey, move your legs. Don't worry, you're not going to fall off. That's what the training wheels are there for, right? Well, it's the same thing when it comes to GLP-1 drugs. Those are the training wheels. They're not meant to make the bike move forward. They can't. That's where the work comes in. That's where the lifestyle changes and the habit changes come in. We have to do the work. And so by doing the work, eventually we can get the training wheels off the bike. We start riding normally and we start to enjoy the journey. That's where the lifestyle behavior modifications long-term comes in. Now, with all the research that I found, folks, is crystal clear. Medication by itself will lead eventually to weight regain and muscle loss. You can research it for yourself and find out. You know, GLP-1 drugs, they're meant to support healthy lifestyle habits, not serve as a replacement. Now, let's get into who should be taking GLP-1s in the first place. Now, remember, please talk to your doctor or your healthcare professional first before making any modifications. Now, the research suggests that GLP-1s are for people with obesity, dealing with a high BMI rate, people with type 2 diabetes with a high risk of heart issues and heart conditions. It's also for people who are finding that, the lifestyle changes that they've tried, they're just not working. But it's also for people who understand that, hey, if I get on these drugs long term, these are the things that I have to do. And these are the ramifications of that. Let's talk about the lifestyle first approach. Who probably doesn't need GLP-1s? If somebody is mildly overweight or mildly obese, or you have prediabetes, the research suggests that also if you don't have any current heart conditions, maybe you've only gained a little bit of weight, there's only been a minimal amount of weight gain, or even if you prefer not to take meds, you just want to avoid it. Those are some people who may consider not taking GLP-1s. That's why knowledge is key. Knowledge is powerful, folks. I'm telling you. Now, what happens long term when you stop GLP-1s? This is a reality. So when you begin drug therapy on GLP-1s, there's people who are going to experience significant weight loss. But when you stop taking it for whatever reason, there's some people who run the risk of, let's say, 18 months later, rebounding and experiencing a rebound effect. That's when they start regaining the weight, especially if there's no lifestyle modification changes. I hope that the information I provided you today is helping you to make a decision that's best for you. Folks, I know what it is when you've been prescribed a medication, you've been prescribed these things and you're like, man, is this stuff even going to work? You are concerned. So let me have a heart to heart with you. When I was first diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, it was scary. And then actually at the hospital, they gave me a list of all these medications that I had to take. From injections, like I mentioned before, I had to take oral medications. I had to watch what I eat. I had to do all these different things. And it was so overwhelming, folks. And it was a big decision. Yeah, I had heard about doing surgery, but I was like, I'm not going to go that route. I was 268 pounds. Like I said, I was dealing with some issues with my heart, just some irregularities. But it was because of the high cholesterol. And I thought I was going to need a stent put in my heart and all of this other stuff because I was dealing with some shortness of breath and just some other stuff that was just going on. And so I know what it feels like when you're being told, hey, you have to be on this medication. And you're like, gosh, I don't want to take these meds, man. I just don't. So I'm not here to tell you to take your meds or not to take your meds. I just think there needs to be a balanced approach to all of this. If you've heard anything that I've said today, it's important for you to have a balanced perspective on things. Because listen, folks, all these shortcuts that people take to lose weight, they end up, experiencing some challenges later on. Or some people go on these specialty diets and these highly restrictive diets, and they are not getting long-term results. And that's the stuff that just like bothers me. It bothers me to know. And when I hear about people spending all this money, all this time, all this energy to lose weight, and it doesn't have to be so complicated, man. This is frustrating. I have a friend of mine who he and his wife almost signed up for this weight loss program. This guy was going to charge them, I think the initial call was going to be like $4,000, $4,000 or something like that. And over time, over 1 year, I don't know, it would have been like tens of thousands of dollars just to lose weight. And I get it. They were in a desperate situation. And thank God they decided against signing up for this program. And I'm telling you, folks, I'm seeing and hearing from people who are making lifestyle changes to deal with their prediabetes, who are making lifestyle changes to reverse type 2 diabetes, and they're getting results. Some people are on meds, others are not. I can only tell you that in my situation, yes, I was on meds for a while and I came off meds. And I'm glad that I went the approach that I went. Now, I didn't have the support like you're having with me giving you this information. I didn't have somebody who I can relate to break this stuff down to me like I'm breaking it down to you. So when I say your support system is really important, it is. That's why I want you to talk to your healthcare professional. It could be an endocrinologist. It could be a diabetes educator or your primary care physician, somebody who knows what they're talking about, who has dealt with other patients and so forth. So you can get the clinical guidance that you need. I'm here to give you the practical, everyday stuff that I did to turn my life around. And hopefully this stuff is inspiring enough for you to make changes. I don't want you to take that approach where you do nothing. I want you to do something. It's important that you do something because you already know the results of doing nothing. That's why we're in the situation that we're in, because up until now, we weren't really focusing and dialed in to our health. Okay, so let's get into some of the questions you should ask your doctor or your healthcare professional when you're considering GLP-1s. Ask them, is this medication something that I'll need to take for the rest of my life? There are some doctors who believe that GLP-1s are a chronic treatment or what's called chronic treatment, basically ongoing treatment, something that people would have to take for the rest of their life. It's not a quick fix, but it's something that people would have to be on long term. So, I remember when my doctor prescribed my medication, the metformin, and I saw on the paper, it said long-term therapy. Now, years later, I realized what that meant. So automatically off the rip, they were saying long-term therapy. So ask a doctor, hey, am I going to have to be on this for the rest of my life? Basically. So here's another question you need to ask. What happens if I stop taking this GLP-1 medicine? You see, the reason why you want to ask this question in particular, because you may have the bright idea that, you know what, I don't like the side effects and I'm just going to stop taking these meds and just kind of wing it. Well, what happens if you do that? You know, you started this therapy, but then midstream, you just stop. You need to be educated. You need to be knowledgeable about what would happen and are there any risks to be concerned about? Now, here's another question specific to weight loss. When will the weight loss stop? You know, weight loss usually levels off, from what I understand, about a year and a half later once you're on the medication. But what happens if you are still on the medication? Is there still going to be some weight loss? Is it going to just level off after about a year and a half? In my situation, what are we looking like when it comes to weight loss? When is it going to stop? So here's another question that you should probably ask yourself. Are you prepared to be on meds for at least a year and a half or even longer? Here's a question about side effects. Hey, doc, what are the most common side effects to this GLP-1 drug, this specific one that you're recommending? You know, here's the thing. The biggest issues that people are experiencing from what I understand is problems with nausea, some stomach issues, some GI tract issues, even diarrhea, folks. I'll be honest with you and transparent. When I was on my diabetes medication, there was a concern with diarrhea. And I talked to my doctor about it. And so he switched up my meds. He didn't take me off of it. He just switched it up and it got better. So that's something that you want to do. So have the courage enough to ask your doctor and find out what are some of the common side effects. And if you decide to go the route to take these medications, understand what are some things that I, in my situation, may experience, especially if you're having to take this in combination with some other stuff. Remember, I was on insulin injections. I was taking high blood pressure medication, high cholesterol medication. And there's certain things that my doctor told me, hey, I'm only going to have you on this specific drug for a while to treat this condition over here, but that definitely is not going to be long term. This is going to be long term. So we worked out a plan. And so I'm glad that I asked those questions because I don't know about you. I don't just want to be taking pills just to be taking pills. I don't want to be taking injections just to be taking injections. So I could talk to you too about what I was experiencing later on when I was taking some insulin injections. And I had to talk to my doctor and we made some modifications concerning that. And eventually he weaned me off of all medication. But again, it's a team. It's a team effort. So feel confident enough to ask those important questions. So here's a big question. It's the money question. Ask your doctor, how much will this drug cost me? Is there enough supply? Because I hear that there is a big demand for this drug. So am I going to have it when I need it? And how much is it going to cost me on a monthly basis? And folks, I need you to do the math. How much is that going to cost you for 1 year or a year and a half or 2 years or for the rest of your life? Is this now something that you have to budget for, especially if your insurance doesn't even cover it? Now, the insurance topic, that's something totally different. So it's something to consider. There's a whole lot of things to think about. Now, folks, GLP-1s should not be a substitute for healthy living and making healthy choices. You know, for a lot of people, GLP-1s, they're just a tool to support managing type 2 diabetes and dealing with certain heart issues. Listen, whatever you do, please don't take shortcuts just to get some quick results. Don't follow after all these quick lose 30 pounds in 30 days. Folks, I need you to be thinking long term. Think about the long haul. Think about lifestyle and what you want your life to actually look like after losing the weight, after sending diabetes into remission. Listen, folks, I don't want you to rebound. None of us wants to rebound. So now why not make the necessary lifestyle changes to achieve good standing health now? Folks, that's what this episode and this podcast is all about. In the next episode, we're going to talk about strength building, muscle building, not being muscle bound and being like these bodybuilders. No, it's all about practical tools to help us live healthier and feel good. So if today's episode has helped you in any way, please do me a favor. I need you to share it with somebody. Tell somebody about it. There's somebody that you know who may be dealing with some health risks, and this could be a benefit to them. You know, you can change your habits. We can all change our habits for the better. We want to change our health, but it's going to take one decision at a time, folks. And that's showing up consistently. So until next time, stay focused, keep moving, never go back, leap forward, bounce back because you can, my friend. And above all else, trust God. You got this. And you know I believe in you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the Beating Diabetes Lifestyle Podcast with Oscar Camejo. We hope you enjoyed this episode. As a reminder, this podcast is intended for motivational and educational purposes only. It is not a substitute for professional care by a physician or other healthcare professional or qualified fitness instructor. This podcast is provided on the understanding that it does not constitute medical or professional advice or services. If you're looking for help on your journey, seek a qualified medical practitioner. It's important that you utilize someone who is a trained, licensed healthcare professional who can help you on your journey toward good health.